The screech of brakes tore through the night, shattering the silence like a warning of death. A haunting black-and-white image of Prince William appeared on screen. His face was tense, his eyes cold, as he moved quickly through a circle of bodyguards. Then a shocking piece of information began spreading from inside Windsor Castle. A top-secret report had allegedly been leaked, sending shockwaves through the entire British royal family. The contents did not describe an ordinary security threat. It revealed a theory that William was not simply a target of the press or outside extremists. He was allegedly the target of a staged accident, an incident carefully disguised as fate. And what truly sent chills through the public was the identity of the person suspected of being behind it all. Not a stranger, not a political enemy, but people who once sat at the same royal table, raising their glasses together under the lavish lights of the palace. Many sources close to the situation claim that the silent war between Queen Camilla and Prince William has now gone far beyond internal arguments. It has reached a point of no return. Secrets buried for decades are now being uncovered one by one, and the world may be about to witness the most brutal power purge in modern royal history. Do you think power could drive Camilla and her family to become that ruthless? If you believe this conspiracy is real, comment number 1. If you believe this is nothing more than a political distraction, comment number 2. The hatred between Prince William and Queen Camilla has never truly disappeared. It has only been hidden behind diplomatic smiles in front of cameras, ceremonial handshakes, and public appearances on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. But behind the closed doors of the palace, longtime sources claim that this relationship has been broken for years. And the most frightening part is that both sides understand only one person can hold absolute power in the future. For William, the wound named Diana, Princess of Wales, has never belonged to the past. He grew up watching his mother's marriage to King Charles III collapse in front of the entire world. He watched Diana being hunted by the media, isolated within the very family she married into. And in the eyes of many of Diana's supporters, Camilla has always been seen as the symbol of that betrayal. Even though decades have passed, and Charles eventually made his relationship with Camilla official, that does not mean every wound inside the family has healed. As William grew older, what frightened Camilla was not his popularity, but the real influence he held behind the scenes. According to multiple internal sources, nearly 90% of senior royal advisors are believed to quietly support William. That number felt like a direct blow to Camilla's power. It showed that the palace elite were no longer placing their long-term bets on Charles's reign. They were preparing for the post-Charles era, and their clear choice was William. That left Camilla in a state of deep isolation. People who once tried to win her favor at diplomatic events began keeping their distance. Advisors who once reported directly to her suddenly became far more cautious with every word. According to a former royal staff member, Camilla once became furious after discovering that several close aides were secretly prioritizing William's schedule over her own engagements. For a woman who spent decades rising from being the most hated woman in Britain to becoming queen, this was a sign she could not accept. Then, 2025 arrived like a direct blow. The international tour of William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, created a global frenzy. Their images appeared on front pages from the United States to Australia. Crowds cheered for them. The media praised them as a modern version of the golden era once associated with Diana. Some royal experts even publicly stated that William and Catherine were already behaving like a future king and queen while Charles was still on the throne. That was the final straw. According to a source close to Clarence House, Camilla began holding private meetings late at night. The list of people allowed to reach her became significantly smaller. Her personal phone was placed under tighter control. Several longtime staff members were suddenly replaced without any official explanation. Even worse, Internal reports showed that public support for Camilla continued to decline, while William's popularity surged. In the royal world, public image is a form of invisible power. When the public turns away, the throne becomes more fragile than ever. Many experts believe that, from that moment on, this was no longer a family conflict. It had become a political war for survival. William wanted to reshape the monarchy with a new image. Camilla wanted to protect the position she had spent her entire life fighting to secure. And history has always proven one terrifying truth. When power is threatened, even people who appear elegant and dignified can make the most ruthless decisions. But the jealousy did not stop with cold stares at royal banquets. It began turning into something far more terrifying when night fell inside Camilla's private chambers. When the clock passed midnight at Buckingham Palace, most of the world still believed the British royal family was resting in its usual calm behind glamorous ceremonies. But according to a source who once worked within royal security, it was during those quiet hours that a dark plan was allegedly created. This was no longer media warfare, no longer political attacks behind closed doors. This time, the goal was allegedly chillingly clear. Remove Prince William from the Board of Power without leaving a single direct trace. The name dragged into the center of this storm was Tom Parker Bowles, the son of Queen Camilla. For years, Tom carefully built the image of a man who stayed far away from royal politics. He appeared in public as a polished food writer, someone who was rarely involved in battles over the throne. But according to leaked testimony from a former financial advisor who once worked for members of the British aristocracy, that harmless image became the perfect disguise. This source claimed that an enormous payment worth £2.5 million was quietly moved within just 3 weeks. What made it terrifying was the way the money trail was hidden. It was not sent directly from any account connected to Camilla's family. Instead, the funds were divided through 4 intermediary banks located in Switzerland, Luxembourg, Monaco, and Singapore, before disappearing into a phantom investment fund that existed for less than 48 hours. Financial experts described it as an extremely sophisticated money laundering pattern, one usually seen in international asset manipulation cases or organized criminal operations. What made the investigation even more disturbing was the travel data connected to William during that same period. According to leaked documents, William was expected to attend a charity event in the northern outskirts of London. His route included a narrow road known for an extremely dangerous curve. Local residents called it the Deadly Curve because it had been the site of multiple serious accidents over the years. A former royal security officer revealed that traffic cameras in that area were suddenly scheduled for maintenance on the exact day William was expected to pass through. That detail alone sent chills through many people. The cameras were offline, the route was changed at the last minute, and the escort team received unusual instructions to reduce the number of accompanying vehicles. According to the leaked memo, the plan was simple but brutally ruthless. A heavy truck would appear at the exact moment William's vehicle reached the curve. One high-speed collision would allow everything to be ruled a tragic traffic accident. The media would mourn. The royal family would hold a state funeral, and no one would ever trace the hand behind it. Does that sound familiar? The public immediately remembered Diana, Princess of Wales, and the crash in Paris in 1997. Once again, someone carrying Diana's bloodline was allegedly facing death on the road. That chilling similarity convinced many people that this was far more than coincidence. According to a former private investigator who once tracked members of the British aristocracy, the hired assassin was not an ordinary street criminal. He was allegedly a former mercenary who had operated in Eastern Europe and specialized in staging accidents without leaving direct evidence. His record was reportedly almost completely clean. Everything was calculated down to the minute. The collision angle, the exact moment the cameras would lose signal, the escape route. Even the media strategy after the crisis had allegedly been prepared in advance. This was no longer ordinary jealousy. This was power consumed by the fear of losing a throne. When people believe their future is being stolen from them, they can turn desperation into violence in the coldest possible way. And the most terrifying part was that the plan was almost perfect, down to the last millimeter. Until a quiet woman appeared behind a half-closed door. The woman who accidentally caused that perfect plan to begin falling apart was not a spy, not an international investigator, and not Prince William's security team. It was Anne, Princess Royale, a woman often portrayed by the media as the quietest figure in the British royal family. Yet one of the most formidable people behind palace doors, Anne has long been known as someone disciplined, cold, and fiercely loyal to the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. She does not enjoy media attention. She avoids image-driven battles. But people who have worked at Buckingham Palace understand one important truth. Anne sees everything. She may remain silent for months, but when she speaks, it usually means the real storm has arrived. According to a former royal staff member, that fateful night began very normally inside the private family wing of Clarence House. A private dinner had just ended. Members of the royal family returned to their private rooms one by one. Everything outside seemed completely calm. But close to midnight, Anne returned to a side hallway to retrieve documents she had forgotten after a charity meeting earlier that afternoon. It was in that rarely used hallway that Anne allegedly heard voices coming from a room inside Queen Camilla's private quarters. The door was not fully closed. According to the source, Anne had no intention of listening, but when she heard William's name mentioned alongside the phrase, "unavoidable accident," she immediately froze. Inside the room were reportedly Tom Parker Bowles and two unfamiliar men who had never appeared at royal events before. One male voice allegedly emphasized that the route had been confirmed. The cameras would go offline for exactly 17 minutes. Another voice said the truck would appear for less than 8 seconds. After that, everything would be treated as a normal traffic accident. The source claimed Anne did not enter the room. She did not create a scene. And what shocked many people the most was that Anne did not call the police. Why? That remains the most controversial question of all. Some royal experts believe Anne understood that if the police arrived without clear physical evidence, the entire case would be buried immediately by royal lawyers and advisors. Even worse, the scandal could be covered up, and William would remain in danger. Anne needed a faster and far more discreet solution. She called William directly. According to sources close to royal security, the call happened at around 1 o'clock in the morning. At first, William believed his aunt was calling about an urgent family matter. But after only a few seconds of listening, his expression completely changed. People inside Kensington Palace said William slammed a glass onto the table so hard that it shattered. He asked Anne only one question. "Are you sure?" Anne reportedly answered with a response even shorter than his question. "I heard it clearly." From that moment on, William began changing in a way that frightened even the people closest to him. In public, he still appeared calm beside Catherine, Princess of Wales. He still shook hands with the public. He still smiled in front of cameras. But behind the scenes, William became a completely different man. A former bodyguard described him as a hunter cornered against a wall who chose to fight back instead of running away. William refused to cancel his trip to the northern outskirts of London, even as his security team begged him to change the plan. He wanted to know how large the network behind this plot truly was. If he disappeared from the route, the people behind it would disappear as well. William secretly began working with a security team that was completely loyal to him. Vehicles were changed. Drivers were replaced at the last minute. Recording devices were installed inside several suspicious vehicles. A counter-trap was built from inside the heart of the royal family. According to an independent investigative source, William no longer saw this as a family issue. To him, this was a fight for survival, and also a blood debt tied to the memory of Diana, Princess of Wales. Many people once believed William was too gentle for battles this brutal. They were wrong. The man who once tried to preserve peace inside his family was now ready to rip the mask off everyone he believed had betrayed him. And instead of hiding, William decided to play a dangerous game with death, where he was both the prey and the trap, waiting for the predator to step forward. That morning in the northern outskirts of London began like any other ordinary day. Light fog covered the empty roads. Farms sat quietly in the distance. Royal reporters only knew that Prince William was traveling to a charity event that had been publicly scheduled for days. The media standing outside Kensington Palace continued talking about the future of the throne. No one knew that behind the doors of William's armored vehicle, a life-and-death battle had already been calculated down to the second. After the secret phone call from Anne, Princess Royal, the night before, William barely slept. According to a former guard, he spent hours inside a private security room reviewing route maps, satellite images, and every detail about the road known as the Deadly Curve. It was the location where a truck was allegedly expected to end his life under the disguise of a perfect accident. But William refused to run. He decided to turn the day he was being hunted into the day he hunted those who wanted him gone. That was when the Ghost security network was activated. According to multiple internal sources, this was a secret protocol that had never been made public within the royal protection system. Only a very small group knew the real plan. The official motorcade appeared at the palace gates only to distract the media. Meanwhile, William left through a lesser-known exit. 2 identical vehicles were added to the convoy. One carried the real William. The other was a decoy. Public traffic cameras along the route were secretly connected to a private technical network to prevent them from being disabled. Surveillance drones were deployed from a distance. A rapid response team disguised as road workers waited near the dangerous area. Everything looked more like a military operation than the schedule of a royal family member. Even William's driver was replaced at the last minute. The man behind the wheel that morning was reportedly a former tactical driving specialist who once served in British Special Forces. His records had allegedly been almost completely erased from civilian systems. In security circles, he was known for surviving high-speed ambush situations that few people ever escape. As the convoy moved closer to the Deadly Curve, the atmosphere inside the vehicle became suffocating. One bodyguard noticed that the tracking signal was disrupted for several seconds. The escort vehicle behind them suddenly lost radio communication. A nearby traffic camera went dark exactly as Anne had overheard. Everything was unfolding with terrifying precision. 10:17 in the morning. A heavy truck suddenly burst from a side road on the right at extreme speed. There were no signs of braking, no attempt to avoid impact. It charged directly toward the vehicle believed to be carrying William. Witnesses said the moment looked like watching a live execution. Sirens screamed. The sound of brakes tearing across the pavement shattered the quiet countryside. In a split second, William's driver made a maneuver that many experts later called impossible. He turned sharply to the left, forcing the vehicle dangerously close to a steel roadside barrier with only a few centimeters of space. The vehicle tilted violently. One wheel nearly left the road entirely. If he had been off by less than a second, the vehicle would have rolled down the slope below. But that single turn saved William's life. The truck missed its primary target and slammed directly into the decoy vehicle behind it. The crash sounded like a massive explosion. Metal was crushed. Glass shattered across the road. Thick black smoke rose into the air. One vehicle spun several times before crashing violently into a protective barrier. People living near the crash scene began screaming and running for safety. But the final step William had prepared was what caused the entire plot to collapse. A secret drone captured the entire collision from above. Backup cameras remained active. A tracking device had already been planted on the suspicious truck after William's security team detected unusual movement several hours earlier. The truck never had a chance to escape. A rapid response team rushed in within minutes. The driver attempted to flee through a nearby field, but was quickly restrained. According to leaked reports, investigators discovered contacts on the suspect's phone, linked to the same financial network that had received the suspicious £2.5 million transfer. When the vehicle door opened, Prince William stepped out to the shock of his entire security team. According to one witness, many people were nearly frozen in disbelief because they believed he could not have survived the attack. But William showed no sign of relief. He stared at the burning wreckage with an expression so cold it frightened people. He bent down, picked up a piece of broken glass from the road, and asked only one question: "Is he still alive?" When he was told that the driver was still breathing, William immediately ordered the entire area to be sealed off. No reporters were allowed near the scene. Witnesses' phones were temporarily restricted. A security helicopter appeared in the sky within minutes. At that moment, William understood a truth far more terrifying than death. The people who wanted him gone were not outsiders. They were sitting inside the gold-covered rooms of his own family. The sound of crashing metal had ended, but the collapse of an entire dynasty was only beginning. The attack on the rural highway lasted only a few minutes, but the shockwaves it created lasted through the night and turned Windsor Castle into the most terrifying place in Britain. While the media was completely blocked from receiving information, and the public had no idea that Prince William had just survived an assassination attempt disguised as a traffic accident, a silent purge had already begun behind the ancient stone walls of Windsor. There were no glamorous royal ceremonies, no luxurious diplomatic dinners. That night there was only fear, betrayal, and the terrified expressions of people who realized royal history was entering its darkest chapter. The driver of the truck was not taken to a public hospital as normal procedure would require. According to a leaked security source, he was secretly transferred to a classified facility deep inside Windsor grounds, a location previously used for national security emergencies. His identity records were locked down that same night. His phone was confiscated. Financial connections were urgently investigated. No one was allowed access except for a special investigative team personally approved by William. When Prince William returned to Windsor, many staff members said the atmosphere instantly became unbearably cold. No one saw him lose control of his emotions. No one saw him scream or destroy things like in movies. What terrified people was his absolute calm. One staff member said William walked through the hallway with an expression that was almost emotionless, like a man who had accepted that the family war was officially over and that only a fight for survival remained. The interrogation began shortly after midnight, 12 straight hours. No breaks. According to internal sources, the interrogation team included senior security experts and several former officials who once worked for British intelligence. They placed all the evidence gathered by the Ghost Security Network in front of the suspect. Drone footage capturing the exact moment the truck attacked. Tracking data. Records of the £2.5 million transfer. Lists of secret phone calls. Backup camera footage. Every possible path of denial was nearly completely sealed off. At first, the suspect remained silent. He repeatedly claimed it was an accident. He said he lost control of the truck. He said he did not know who was inside the vehicle ahead of him. But investigators continued tightening psychological pressure. By the 6th hour, they showed him that the entire financial network behind the operation had been frozen. By the 9th hour, they presented evidence linking him to brokers in Switzerland. And by the 12th hour, the man completely broke down. According to leaked records, He burst into tears and revealed the name that left the entire room in deadly silence. Tom Parker Bowles. The atmosphere inside Windsor almost froze the moment that name was mentioned. According to a senior staff member, several advisors looked at each other in panic because they understood the situation had gone far beyond a personal conspiracy. It directly involved the family of Queen Camilla. Camilla was summoned to an emergency meeting that same night in a secured private room inside Windsor. Sources said she entered with her usual confidence. But only minutes after reading the testimony, her expression completely changed. People standing near the room claimed they heard a loud scream from inside, followed by a long and terrifying silence. But the figure who shocked many the most was King Charles III. He was present at the meeting. He heard the entire testimony, and he said almost nothing. According to multiple internal sources, Charles simply sat in silence, staring at the table for hours. Some believed he was trying to protect the woman he had been with for decades. Others believed he understood that any decision he made would destroy what remained of the family. But William no longer had patience for hesitation. According to leaked sources, he stood up and delivered the coldest ultimatum of his life. Those involved had to leave the royal system that very night. No negotiation. No further cover-up. Before dawn arrived, a secret convoy left Clarence House. No announcement. No explanation. Nothing was confirmed on paper. But many sources believe this was a silent removal of dangerous figures from the center of power. As the sun began to rise, Prince William stood alone by a window overlooking the Windsor grounds covered in morning mist. He was still alive. He had won. But the price was the realization that the most dangerous people were not outside the palace gates. They were inside his own family. And for the first time, William understood that the crown had never been heavier. Because the true cost of the throne was eternal isolation. Ladies and gentlemen, the dawn after that chaotic night did not bring peace to the British royal family. It only left a palace full of cracks that may take years, even generations, to repair. According to later leaked sources, Queen Camilla was not formally prosecuted, but her power was almost completely erased. Her public duties were heavily restricted. Private meetings were monitored. Some of her closest advisors disappeared from the royal system within weeks. For many royal experts, it was nothing less than a form of gilded confinement. The fate of Tom Parker Bowles was even more devastating. The man once seen as a harmless gentleman of British high society was removed from every circle of influence. His financial connections were investigated. His reputation collapsed overnight. From a familiar name at luxury gatherings, Tom became a name no one dared to mention inside Buckingham Palace. As for Prince William, the man once seen as the gentlest face of the monarchy's future, the world is now asking a far more frightening question. Is Britain preparing to welcome a strong king, or a king so cold that he is willing to sacrifice even his own family to protect the throne? And now I want to ask you the same question from the beginning of this video. Do you believe this is a real conspiracy, or simply a perfectly executed political purge? Leave your comment number 1 or number 2 below. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel to continue following the next classified files being buried behind the walls of the palace. Because in the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. But sometimes death is easier than living in the coldness of your own bloodline.